The first step in preventing abuse is to understand who the abusers are, and they're not always who you think. Some abusers purposefully seek employment at camps as an opportunity to be close to children and youth. They are manipulative and use the system and their position as an authority figure to earn the trust of campers, and then ultimately betray that trust. An abuser could very well be one of your coworkers.
Not all staff-to-camper abuse is premeditated, though. Take, for example, a relationship that develops between a 20-year-old staff member and an underage camper. This is inappropriate in a camp setting and against the law, and it cannot be tolerated.
It's also possible that a staff member could harass another staff member. While this is technically defined as harassment, not abuse, it is possible that a camper might witness this behavior. They'll think it's okay and then model that behavior.
While we most often think of abuse happening between an adult and a minor, abuse among peers is common at camp. At camp, children are often overstimulated, and that can cause them to act out in different ways, abusive ways, such as bullying, violence, or sexual abuse.
And then there's abuse that happens before camp even begins. Teachers, parents, other family members, kids may come to camp and report abuse to you, and you need to know how to handle it appropriately. More on that coming up. But first, we want to make sure you understand the types of abuse you should be looking out for. Abuse is a complex subject because there are many types, including sexual, physical, and emotional abuse, as well as bullying, hazing, and inappropriate contact after camp.
The Federal Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act has a technical definition of child sexual abuse that includes everything from molestation, rape, and prostitution to the enticement or coercion of children to engage in explicit conduct or simulate explicit conduct. This includes inappropriate touching in any way, shape, or form, exposure of oneself or asking another to expose him or herself, voyeurism, taking inappropriate photos, viewing or sharing pornography, or talking about inappropriate subjects in front of campers. Some of these are obvious things to avoid, others not so much. Something as simple as commenting on how a bathing suit looks on a camper, joking around, or mooning can be considered sexual abuse. It's critical that you think hard about your every action and your every word.
Another type of abuse is physical abuse, which the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act defines as any non-accidental physical injury to the child. This includes striking, kicking, burning, biting, encouraging fighting between campers, or any act or circumstance that threatens the child with harm or creates a substantial risk of harm. In some states, neglect is also considered physical abuse and refers to any situation in which food, clothing, shelter, medical care, or supervision is withheld. These are all very important things to consider when thinking about any discipline procedures at your camp.
While sexual and physical abuse are what most people first think of, you also need to be on the lookout for emotional abuse. This is any abuse that injures the psychological capacity or emotional stability of a child or youth and can be observed in his or her behavior. Look out for things like anxiety, depression, withdrawal, or aggressive behavior. Emotional abuse can include name-calling, belittling or telling children or youth they won't amount to anything, not including individuals in activities for no rational reason, and not giving children and youth the tools and support they need to become independent adults. When taken to an extreme, sarcasm can be misunderstood and also considered abusive.
Another not so evident type of abuse is bullying or hazing, which can include a combination of many types of abuse, including sexual, physical, and emotional abuse.
Bullying, often seen in peer-to-peer situations, is generally a repeated behavior inflicted on someone unable to defend him or herself. It can include name-calling, teasing, spreading rumors, leaving people out, breaking up friendships, hitting, punching, shoving, and stealing.
Hazing is a form of bullying. At some camps, there might be rituals, especially as campers move up to a new level based on age, experience, or other criteria. They might be forced to participate in humiliating or risky activities, and even if the participant is willing, it is still considered abuse. Under no circumstances should your camp allow hazing, which might include, but isn't limited to, personal servitude, sleep deprivation, restrictions on personal hygiene, yelling, swearing and insulting, wearing humiliating clothing, consumption of vile substances, brandings, physical beatings, binge drinking or drinking games, sexual simulation, or sexual assault.
There is one final type of abuse that can happen, and that's abuse that happens after camp has ended. Whether it's via email, text, social media, or face-to-face, some abusers take advantage of the deep relationships that have formed at camp to carry on an inappropriate relationship later. As a best practice, there should be no contact between a staff member and a camper after camp has ended.
Now that we've given you an idea of what to look out for, it's time to take a look at some measures you can take at your camp to help prevent abuse and give you some pointers on what to do if you suspect it might be happening. One of the best ways you can help prevent abuse at your camp is by carefully screening all paid staff and volunteers. Here are a few things to consider. All applicants responsible for supervising children and youth should be at least 18 years old and have a minimum of 3 references that can be verified as authentic. A thorough background check should be conducted for each applicant. During interviews, watch out for red flag behavior or comments such as rigid beliefs about discipline, an inappropriate sense of contact with minors, a dependence on children and youth for a sense of fulfillment, or behavior that is over-controlling. Also, notice the candidate's attire. Make sure they are dressed appropriately and not wearing anything that's too revealing or offensive. And check that candidates have appropriate experience that warrants placing them with children and youth.
Another way to help prevent abuse at camp is to properly train camp staff, making it absolutely clear as to what is and isn't acceptable in terms of behavior. Take, for example, touching. Kids at camp, especially younger ones, love to hug. And it's okay to hug back, as long as you do it sideways. It's okay to hold hands with campers, as long as they are under 5 years old. Regardless of age, only touch campers on the arm, shoulders, and upper back. Another guideline is to never touch a camper somewhere that would be covered by a swimsuit. If first aid is required in an area normally covered by a swimsuit, or anywhere near the upper thigh, it should be provided in the company of another adult staff member. In terms of appropriate and inappropriate language, it's really quite simple. Never, ever use or allow the use of language that is foul, derogatory, sexual, or hurtful in any way. Now on to discipline. Your camp should have a written disciplinary procedure that aligns with state laws for disciplining minors. Included in the procedure should be a documentation process and a warning system. The warning system should include specific behaviors that would result in a verbal warning, followed by a written warning, followed by a call to parents, and ultimately, expulsion from camp. When disciplining campers, here are a few best practices to keep in mind. First, stay calm. Even though emotions may be running high, never shout, use foul or derogatory language, or physically harm a camper. If you find yourself losing your cool, ask for help from another staff member and take a break. If you need to pull a camper aside for disciplinary reasons, do so in clear view of others. Meals should not be denied as a form of punishment. Other campers should never be responsible for determining discipline, nor should it be carried out by other campers. And finally, don't hold a grudge. Consider each day a fresh start. One final word. Always remember that everything you do, how you respond, and how you act as a leader, everything will be modeled by campers. Appropriate behavior begins with you, so be sure to set a good example.
Besides screening and training, proper supervision procedures are a good way to help prevent abuse. Whether it's during structured activities or free time, you must adhere to strict supervision protocol. Keep campers within eyesight at all times. When eyesight is inappropriate, like during shower time, make sure you are within earshot. Always practice the rule of two. That means you should always have two adults anywhere that children are present. Under no circumstance should you ever be alone with a child or group of children. Everything you do with campers should be done in the presence of others. We've talked a lot about what you should and shouldn't do to help keep campers protected, and it's a lot to get your head around. That's why you might consider drafting a written code of conduct that will be reviewed and signed by everyone who works at your camp. It lets everyone know what your expectations are and is an excellent way to help prevent abuse. Here are a few things staff and volunteers might agree to in your code of conduct. Not hitting or physically threatening campers, refraining from abusive or derogatory language, seeking help from a supervisor or director if needed, refraining from touching campers in areas normally covered by a bathing suit or on their upper thigh unless a medical necessity, and then only in the company of another adult staff member. Prohibiting hazing, making sure there are always 2 or more adults present at all times and within earshot during shower time, changing time, or other situations where being physically present is inappropriate. Refusing to allow campers to be alone with staff in staff quarters. Refusing to share a bed or sleeping bag with a camper. Refraining from tickling or teasing, pillow fights, water fights, wrestling matches, and other types of horsing around. Keeping private, emotional, or romantic information personal. Notifying the camp director if the safety or well-being of a camper is at risk. And doing everything with campers in the company of other adults. With digital devices being a key way we communicate with each other, it's also recommended that camps have a social and digital media code of conduct in place. Again, having this be a written agreement that is signed by staff leaves everyone with a common understanding. Include rules such as the following. Camp staff should not have any one-on-one private contact with campers through any electronic communication vehicles, including, but not limited to, email, text messages, instant messaging, or Facebook. Any electronic communication between camp staff and campers must take place in a public environment, such as the camp's public Facebook page. Be sure to remove and avoid posting anything that doesn't align with the camp's image, including inappropriate photos, language, or activities. If there is ever a case when one-to-one communications with a camper is necessary, an additional camp staff member should be copied in the correspondence. Finally, suggest that parents monitor social media and pay attention to who their children are talking to in order to help mitigate abuse that happens after camp.
So we've given you some insight into the types of abuse that exist and some ways you can help prevent it. But what if abuse still happens? Whether it's abuse that a camper tells you about or abuse you suspect, and whether it happens outside of camp or at camp. In most states, you're required to report it. And there are some very specific steps you should take.
That's right. Start by taking a hard look at signs that might indicate abuse. Signs like a fellow staff member who spends an inappropriate amount of time with a single camper. A camper who refuses to participate, is despondent, stops eating, or shows other signs of emotional distress. Or a camper who shows signs of physical abuse, like bruises or bleeding.
Your campers should know who they can go to if they feel threatened, afraid, or bullied. And that could be you. If and when that happens, the first thing you should do is stay calm. Don't get emotional. And tell the camper you're glad he or she told you. Tell them you believe them, even if you have doubts. If you question what they're telling you, they may shut down, and the line of communication will be broken. Then, notify a supervisor. Even if a camper swears you to secrecy, you have to report it. A way of sharing this with the camper is to ask them, what kind of friend would I be if I didn't help you?
If the accused abuser is an employee or volunteer, the supervisor should inform that person of the accusations. They should then be suspended with pay if they are a paid employee, while a formal investigation is conducted. Consult with your attorney for advice regarding compliance with reporting laws. Then file necessary reports with the appropriate agency within the time frame required in your state. If possible, meet with the parents and, with their permission, the camper, together with your reporting agency official. If geography prevents you from meeting with the parents, your agency official will advise you what to do. Finally, but very importantly, notify your liability insurance company. Do not wait until the investigation is concluded unless your attorney advises you. Telling your insurance company right away is not an admission of negligence, but rather a wise and protective measure. Chances are your insurance company is experienced in dealing with similar cases and can help you with next steps.
While you have many responsibilities as a camp employee or volunteer, a very important part, perhaps the most important part, is to protect campers, and that includes protecting them from abuse. Take it seriously, and be sure to let campers and their parents know what you are doing to make camp a safe place for everyone. It will help comfort them as they put their trust in you.
I'm Mike Ravin, President and CEO of Church Mutual Insurance Company. As you develop activities and safety protocol at your camp, I urge you to pay attention to the subject of abuse. The reality is, camp is a place where children and their parents are putting their implicit trust in people they don't know, and that creates the perfect atmosphere for abuse to take place. We hope you'll take our recommendations to heart as a way to help protect children and youth, as well as the reputation and longevity of your camp. Thank you for your time and attention, and for your commitment to creating a safe and nurturing camp environment.
Church Mutual Insurance Company offers brochures, videos, newsletters, posters, and checklists to help make your organization and activities safer for everyone involved. For a full list of available materials, visit www.churchmutual.com.